For those of you joining the meeting, live translation in Spanish is available today. For members of the public or staff wishing to listen in Spanish, you can click on the interpretation icon in your Zoom toolbar. It looks like a globe. Once you join the Spanish channel, we recommend you shut off the main audio so you only hear the Spanish translation. Charles, can you restate that in Spanish?
Para los recién unidos a la reunión, la interpretación en español está disponible y los miembros del público y el personal quienes deseen escuchar en español pueden pasar al canal de español. Para cambiar de canal, haga clic en el icono de interpretación ubicado en la barra de herramientas de Zoom. Parece un globo terráqueo. Y ya que se une al canal de español, recomendamos que apaguen el audio principal para poder escuchar la interpretación únicamente.
Thank you.
Very well. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our City of Santa Rosa City Council meeting via Zoom on this April 26, 2022. The time is now 3 o'clock. Madam City Clerk, can you please call roll?
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Schwedhelm.
Here.
Councilmember Sawyer. Councilmember Rogers.
Present.
Councilmember McDonald.
Here.
Councilmember Fleming. Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Present.
And Mayor Rogers will be absent from the meeting. Let me circle back. Councilmember Sawyer, are you joined?
I don't believe he can hear us.
Councilmember Sawyer, I see you. Do you hear us? I think. Give him a quick call. Oh. Hi, John.
Oh, he's no longer with us. 2, 3, 4. We do have a quorum, I see. Well, we make the connection with Councilman Member Sawyer. I see that we do have quorum. Let's go ahead and move on to item 3.1. Madam City Manager, would you like to introduce this item?
Thank you, Vice Mayor Alvarez, and good afternoon, members of council. Item 3.1 is the citywide pavement condition update. I would like to introduce Deputy Director Sprinkle, who will be giving the presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor Alvarez, members of the City Council. I'm Rob Sprinkle, Deputy Director of Transportation and Public Works in the traffic section, which also encompasses the Materials Engineering Lab section. It's been some time since we've presented an update to Council on our current pavement condition for the City of Santa Rosa, and it's our pleasure to be here today. I'd like to introduce Andrew Cazell, our Materials Associate, and Dan Baker, our Quality Control Associate from the Materials Lab, who will be heading up today's study session presentation and discussion. We have a lot of technical information to go through today, and these gentlemen are the experts to help explain it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Thanks, everyone, for joining our presentation today. We're going to cover current state of our city street network, future projects, different treatment types that we're attempting to stretch our dollar to the maximum, and funding needs that we'll need in the future. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dan.
Yeah, hello everybody. Thank you. Thank you for having us today, listening to us. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Yeah, so basically we'll go over what is PCI, look at our current network condition, our current value of our pavement system, project selection factors. We'll take a look at some of our types of pavement treatments, examples and costs of each. We'll look at some future projects and our current trend on our current spending. And then we'll open it up to questions at the end. So go ahead to our first slide here. So yeah, what is PCI? PCI rating system is broken into 4 categories: good, at risk, poor, and failed. A good street is basically a brand new street is a 100, all the way down to a 0, a completely failed street would basically be like a gravel road. So yeah, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So here's an example of a PCI of 80. PCI between 70 and 100 is classified as good and is currently 47% of our overall network. You can see a PCI of 80. The street shown here has had some preservation treatments to it already. It's been slurry sealed. You can see some cracking starting to show through here. And so it's ready for further maintenance, further preservation. Go ahead to the next slide. Here is a PCI of 62, example of a 62. 62 is actually our current network average. PCI between 50 and 69 is classified as at risk and is currently 21% of our network. And go ahead to the next slide. This is a poor condition PCI. The street shown here is a PCI index of 35. PCI between 26 and 49 is classified as poor and is currently 28% of our overall network. Go ahead to the next slide. This is a very poor condition or a failed condition PCI. The street shown here is a 12, and these streets in this category are currently about 4% of our overall network. Streets in the last two, the poor and failed conditions, require full reconstructs for treatments. So go ahead and go to the next slide. We wanted to show you our current network condition. This is a map of our overall PCI index. It shows the average of being 62, and it's color coordinated, showing the four different categories: good, at risk, poor, and failed. All right, go ahead and go to the next slide. This is our current dashboard of our Street Saver program. It shows a breakdown of the PCI by roadway type and also by network area. So you can see the PCI by our main arterials, our collectors or transitionals, and then our residential and local roads. And then down below, you can see how PCI is broken up by network area. And then again, it just shows the map there. The pavement management program Street Saver allows us to categorize and track our network condition and helps us with project selection overall. So go ahead to the next slide. So how do we stay ahead of the curve? The first statement here is kind of our preservation first, or best practices approach. I'm just going to go ahead and read these for you. Maximizing paving dollars and extending roadway life through pavement preservation by keeping good streets in good condition. That's kind of our overall philosophy. Then I want to read you a little quote from roadresource.org, which says, pavement preservation is a cost-effective and greener approach to getting the most life out of your roads and making taxpayer dollars go further. In addition to cost efficiency, a pavement preservation approach is known to produce fewer greenhouse gas emissions, consume less energy, and provide faster application times than the alternative conventional approach, which would be full reconstruct of a road. So go ahead and I'm going kind of fast through these, but at the end we'll open it up to questions, and you guys feel free to go back and ask anything you need. So here we wanted to show some of our treatment types that we utilize in our pavement program. Crack sealing, it shows the costs of each also. So crack sealing, which is approximately $1 per linear foot. Slurry sealing, $4 a square yard. And cape sealing at $10 a square yard. Those are more of the preservation type approaches. And then a little more robust type treatments. We have overlays and reconstructs, full HMA asphalt reconstructs and PCC concrete reconstructs. And you can kind of see the life expectancy and the costs per square yard of each of those shown. So it shows the benefit and the value of each and how we would use that. All right, so go ahead and go to the next slide. This is our pavement life cycle cost per square yard shown, and it's shown on a traditional life cycle curve of pavement. You can see the projected life cycle curve shown on the main curve in the center of the slide, the black curve. It shows the PCI category on the left, And then it shows the cost and benefit of the treatment type and the effect it has in preserving the street. And so you can see here the benefit of a slurry seal type treatment and how it can extend the life of the roadway, shown in green. So at $4 a square yard, slurry seal treatment in a good condition road, you can see how it prolongs the life and keeps the road up in that good condition, opposed to a full reconstruct in a fair condition or poor condition road, which is much more costly and doesn't extend the road quite as long as preservation type treatments would. All right, on to the next slide. So here we have a basic overview of our pavement asset and then some of our project selection factors. So overall, the replacement value of our city pavement asset is over 1.4 billion. Right now, it would cost us about $15.5 million a year plus inflation to maintain our current PCI of 62. And we're currently spending about $11 million a year on pavement projects. We just wanted to point out also that one PCI point loss or gain to the overall network costs about $15 million to recover. So one point has a lot of value. Some of our roadway project selection and factors include the roadway condition. So we look at the overall PCI condition of the roadway. We look to see if there's any future projects coming, mainly sewer and water CIP projects. So we don't want to do a full costly reconstruct of a road if there's a sewer project or water project coming within the next 15 years, really. Otherwise, they're just going to have to, go into the road again and cut through the brand new pavement. And we also look at location geography. How can we distribute projects evenly throughout the city and, make it fair for everybody? All right, on to the next slide. This shows some of our future projects here. We have a Fulton Road widening project coming. So that's a complete street project. It's going to be constructed using concrete cement, which is far less expensive than conventional asphalt and has a long design life up to 60+ years. We're also looking at using similar concrete pavement on Calistoga Road, which is another project coming soon. And then we have our 2023 Slurry Seals, Slurry Seal streets, which are mainly going to be focused in the downtown Santa Rosa area. Also, we have a future pavement preservation project in the Roseland district, which is an AR Cape seal, which is basically a chip seal followed by a slurry seal. So it's a more robust slurry seal type preservation treatment. So those are some of our future coming soon projects there. All right, on to the next slide. This slide shows some of our concerns with current spending. Right now, as I mentioned, we're spending about $11 million a year on pavement. This red trend line shows if we continue with that funding, where we will end up in a 30-year time cycle. So in 30 years, we're basically down to a 44 PCI. And then it also shows the cost to recover that back to our current 62 PCI. So if we wait 10 years, we'll be at a 54 PCI. And it will cost $27+ million a year over a 10-year period just to recover our PCI back to where we currently are at a 62. And likewise, if we wait 20 years, it costs $33 million a year to recover that PCI back to a 62. So you can see the benefit of, the preservation dollars now and really getting the funding to the paving now, opposed to waiting and trying to play catch up at a later date. So go ahead and go to the next slide. This shows our PCI versus spending again. And again, that's the current $11 million a year trend. In blue, it shows $11 million a year plus an inflation adjustment, and how that can, just help, just a little bit would help bump that PCI up to a 51 over a 30-year period. And then it shows in green our true costs to maintain where we're at now at 15.5 million. Our overall goal at the moment is just to maintain where we currently are. So yeah, we can open this up to more questions. Yeah, go ahead and go to the next slide. Again, we just wanted to show you our current map. So this is the current PCI at 62, color coordinated with the 4 different categories of good, at risk, poor, and completely failed in red. And then the next slide shows our 30-year PCI with current spending. So this is where we'd be at in 30 years with a PCI of 44, and you know, a lot more streets that are completely failed. And then the last slide, we wanted to show you where we are, where we would be if we had the appropriate funding for pavement projects and maintaining our PCI at 62 for a 30-year period, kind of what our network would look like. So go ahead to the next slide and we'll just review some of this, and then I'm sure there'll be lots of questions. So yeah, streets are a valuable asset for the city. I think we know that. Funding pavement preservation projects now is going to save money in the future. Current spending will not maintain our current PCI. And I think moving forward, you know, we're looking at, you know, smart, efficient ways to use taxpayer paving dollars. And it's critical to optimize the use of construction materials based on their impacts for long-term performance. And with that, I think we go ahead and open it up to questions.
Very well, thank you. Council, are there any questions for Dan or Andrew? Diana?
So I saw on there was an option to do an HMA road versus a PCC reconstruct road, and the PCC was actually cheaper and had a longer life than the other type of road. Is there any reason that we aren't doing the other one when we have to actually do a full reconstruct? Is that the one we're actually working on? And can you tell me like why we would even consider the other one since it's more expensive with a shorter lifespan? And this is really helpful to see the maps as well, so that we know the implications of not actually investing more in the PCI money right now to make sure that we're staying at 62. I mean, 62 to me is still a D. So it doesn't make sense to say like, oh, yay, we're at 62. But I just want to say thank you for the maps, because that's actually really helpful to know what parts of towns needs to be looked at really quickly, because we're in the red in a lot of them. And even with the investment of 15 million, what I also noticed is we still had a significant amount of red streets in 30 years. So I would want to know, you know, the goal I think is to get to that 15 million right now. And I'm not sure for everybody else, but it would be for me. But then to say, what would we need to have to make sure that we don't have as many reds and those are maybe maintained at a more of a blue? Like, you know, how would that impact budget in the future?
Absolutely. I'll let Andrew talk about that. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
All good. So I'll start with the first one, which is, you know, concrete versus asphalt streets. So, you know, it's more than just the streets that are under, you know, within the city's right of way. You know, we have to coordinate with PG&E, you know, the various telecom, you know, communications teams, PG&E, AT&T, Sonic, those types of companies. And then also our own utilities are under the roads. And so in general, when we come through and do a concrete road that lasts for, you know, 60 plus years, we have to take into consideration, you know, those other utilities under the road and their concerns with popping open the road like that. Rob, do you have anything additional to add to that one?
Yeah, just the life cycle of the pipes and that type of infrastructure that is under the street. If we know that in the next, you know, 10 to 15 years that there's going to be a replacement project, that it may not be as conducive to put in something like concrete, whereas HA may be easier to work with in the future. But like we did on Fulton Road recently, we've just reconstructed that with concrete, and it was a very successful project where we did some minor improvements to the utilities that needed to be done to some of the storm drains prior to the project. And that street was completed, I believe, 2 years ago. And it's been a great success. And we're looking at other locations further to the north with that Fulton Road project that was just approved by council. That will be a roller compacted concrete street. So we're going to use the same type of technology for that roadway. And we're looking at it for future projects, but it's not going to, it won't be just the blanket, this is what we're going to install. There are places where it's more appropriate than others. So.
Yeah, and then I can answer that. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I was just going to answer the second part of her question regarding the PCI of a 62 and then what the map showed with the red streets. We've talked about, a pavement number, a goal. And I think really at this point, and it's open for discussion, but at this point, we're really focused on maintaining where we're at, looking to gain PCI points. If we were to set, say, 70 as a PCI goal, it would cost $33 million a year for the next 10 years to get us to just a 70 PCI. And so right now, looking at the realistic aspect of it, it's what we can get to maintain a 62 and maybe gain a few points and then work slowly up from there and look at a long-term preservation program that we could establish to get us there eventually. But it is costly, very costly to gain those PCI points once you lose them. And that kind of just reiterates the importance of just holding on to what we have right now. And then as far as the map, Street Saver program uses its own algorithms to calculate. It puts value on different streets, different projects, and has its own way of prioritizing what gets done. And it uses kind of an industry standard preservation first type approach. And so it lets the bad streets completely fail, and it puts the funding towards keeping at risk and good streets good. And so in real life, the map wouldn't look quite like that. That's just a projected scenario. There would be some red streets, but it would be more green and blue, and there'd still be some orange. It would probably look similar, maybe with a few more green streets than what we have right now. So.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew, Dan, and Rob. I would just like to add, part of us getting to a long-term plan is this step today, just bringing it to your attention. And what is the condition? And what is the condition of our infrastructure? I think as we continue to talk about physical sustainability for the city, one of the many things we have to address is the infrastructure in the city. So this is why it's important for us to have this discussion with you today.
Thank you. Councilman McDonald, does that answer your questions?
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate the tutorial and the help with that as well. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Councilman Swellman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Thank you, Andrew, Dan, and Rob for that presentation. I have a question because this first time I heard it, I'm going on 8 years with the council. It seems like we've always been at about a 61, right? And if I'm looking at these projections, if we haven't increased the funding, but yet we're still maintaining it, can you just talk a little bit about that? And
yeah, I can talk. I can mention a couple things that contribute to that. So one of them is a small contribution, but it's the city growth. So it's the new subdivisions, the new development, those new roadways that we're constantly adding, and they're generally less than 1% of the overall network per year, but they still contribute to the PCI. And so especially lately in the last few years, we've had a lot of subdivisions with new roads going in. So those help. The preservation, the slurry seal projects and the reconstructs we do are obviously helping a little bit. And then also, this is a little side note, not to make it too complicated, but Street Saver itself, the program changed the way it rates streets recently in the last 4 years. So 4 years ago, there's a distress. I won't get too into it, but there's weathering and raveling are two different distresses. And they took those and they separated them, and it made less of an impact on our streets. And so, and this is industry wide. So a lot of other municipalities have noticed this also.
We got an artificial about 4-point jump during that time frame when they made the differentiation in rating streets. We got about an artificial 4-point jump as part of that. So that's a portion of it. And then our asphalt mix is beating the estimated lifetime duration. Street Saver predicts our asphalt should last 20 years. We're getting it out to 30 to 35 years because we track it daily and make the mix design. So we we're working towards beating the estimates, every day and choosing the right materials and optimizing, the materials that we are using is a huge part of that.
Great, thank you. That clarifies that very much. And you had mentioned that, Andrew, is a nice segue about, I saw with the new one, like the Fulton extension, the last one, the one that's going to be this next phase, you talk about up to a 60-year life expectancy. Do we have any number or data on the actual average? Because I know it almost sounds like a manufacturer. Hey, this will last X number of years. Well, I'm guessing most of the members on this call aren't going to be here 60 years from now to say, hey, they did what they were going to say. Do we have any feedback about what our reality has been compared to what it's up to?
Yeah. So, I mean, a perfect example within the city limits is, the McDonald neighborhood. McDonald itself, the concrete that's on that road was placed in the 1920s, and we still haven't replaced it. So that's actually reached 100 years in life. So that's an example. It's a residential road versus, an arterial road. But in general, the consensus in the industry is, at 60 years, you'll have to replace about 20% of the panels, and then you'll move on from there. I know highways like I-5 are going through a panel replacement project right now. They're replacing 25% of their panels and then diamond grinding their way through, and everything looks brand new again for the next 30-ish years.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question I had on slide 15, you talked about what our investment is, and it says if we keep its continued level with our PCI, if we're going to be going down. Could we go back, again, I don't need an answer now, but what's it look like the past 5 years? We were investing this 5 years ago. How are we doing compared to what we've been doing? Because it's kind of hard when we're projecting the future and we've only got this year and next year, we're at the status line. Where have we been? And I just think it'd be helpful for us and all the listeners and community to understand here
Yes.
It has been the investment that we've been making, and here's where we project it to be going.
Yeah. So about 2 years ago, our PCI was about 2 points higher than we are now. And then if you add in, the 3 to 4 point drop or artificial inflation because of the street saver change, we're talking 4 to 5 points. 2 to 3 years ago is where we were. We're seeing major drops in the PCI due to Coffee Park and Fountain Grove neighborhoods damaged because of the fire event.
Right, and that's the other segue. Sorry, Mr. Vice Mayor, I lied. I do have one more
You're
question.
good. You're good.
How does the FEMA reimbursement and the PG&E dollars that council has decided to invest in the aforementioned Coffee Park and Fountain Grove area, how do those dollars factor into all of this?
Yeah, we're projecting about a 2 to 3 point PCI jump because of those investments.
So is it safe to assume that if we have been doing the $11+ million, we're not, okay, now that we're getting the FEMA dollars, the PG&E dollars, we're still going to maintain the general fund commitment versus, hey, we can now use those dollars elsewhere because now we're getting FEMA dollars. Does that make sense?
I'll jump in real
Yeah.
quick. So we currently aren't getting any general fund money towards paving. We're using the gas tax money and SB1 funding plus grant funding as our main contributions. We are getting general fund money for some of the projects related to, and matches, I believe, related to the FEMA rebuild and the FHWA rebuild, though.
But I guess, Rob, we're not supplanting any of that funding that has been consistent with the FEMA or PG&E dollars, correct?
Correct.
Great. Thank you so much. I love this information.
Thank you, sir. Madam City Clerk, can you show Councilman Sawyer as being present, please?
Yes, I have marked him present in the meeting.
Thank you very much. Councilor, are there any further questions? Yes, Councilman Sawyer.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to Rob and Andrew and Dan for offering this really important information to us and to the community. It's probably inside the top 5 issues that come up in our phone calls and emails. So having this is very, very helpful, at least to give the community a reasonable expectations as far as the repairs of their roadways. They won't necessarily hear what they want to hear, but knowledge is more important than silence. And so it's really, I really appreciate the time and energy it took to put together this presentation And I know that it's helpful for our community to see why and when their roadways will be worked on. So thank you very much. I have no question.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Rogers?
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. I did have a question. Compared to other cities, compared to other cities that are like ours with population and the amount that we use our roads, where do we compare really again for the?
So within the Bay Area, we land just slightly below average. Yep, the average in the Bay Area is a PCI of about a 64, and we're sitting about a 62. So we're just under average for all communities in the Bay Area.
And what are some of those cities that we would be able to compare ourselves?
San Rafael, Novato, some cities in the East Bay, even in the Fairfield. Yeah, Fairfield. I think Roseland, is it Roseland or Roseville? Roseville in the Sacramento area is a great example of a city that has a really good preservation program, and they have some newer streets than we do, but they probably have a little bit higher PCI also, and they have a really good pavement management program. So they're a good asset to inspire towards. And then just some of the other local cities are, like Andrew said, we're just below average.
Okay, when I'm riding around the Bay Area, I just want to know what streets I'm looking at or trying to compare really to see where it is that we're trying to maintain and eventually to get to. So Roseville would be a good
in general, the cities in the Bay Area that are newer will generally have higher PCIs because in general the streets are newer. You know, those that have expanded rapidly in recent years have higher PCIs than we would. But then, you know, those cities that grew significantly, 20 or 30 years ago would be lower than we are. So we're pretty average.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question for you. Is there any technology that isn't readily available, but we as council should be out or on the lookout for?
There's treatment types that we're looking towards. Technology wise, I'm not sure, there's, but as far as treatment types, like we briefly talked about an AR Cape seal, which is going to be something new to our city, which is it's a preservation type of treatment. So it's less costly, but we can treat streets that are slightly lower in PCI than you can with a traditional slurry seal. It's a really robust 2-layered slurry seal basically. And so we're looking towards that to get some of our lower PCI streets treated. And then like we talked about briefly with concrete, using concrete when we can, when it's determined to be, the appropriate use for the street. And as far as, technology, not really. We continue here at the materials lab to do our materials testing and use the some of the more advanced equipment that we have, our asphalt material tester and we do a variety of fatigue tests for asphalt and continue to test the performance aspects of the asphalt to make sure we're getting the best products we can. But as far as outside industry technology, nothing
comes to mind.
Yeah.
But what we have been looking at different types of additives and different types of materials that we can use in conjunction with the practices that we currently are doing, like rubberized asphalt, those types of things.
Fiber.
Exactly, injecting fiber, which we did on Stony Point Road, to make sure that we're at least keeping up with the different performances that might enhance our existing mixes. So we are trying to, and we are being successful in getting, as Andrew said earlier, much more life out of our asphalt than a lot of communities, and that's something that we should really be proud of.
Absolutely. And on behalf of Roseland, California, specifically Santa Rosa, I do want to thank both the Transportation and Public Works, as well as Jason Ed, Assistant City Manager, for the work that has been done in Roseland. I know that I get many compliments of the improvements that we've seen in District 1, so thank you. Are there any additional comments or questions on item 3.1, Council? Oh, Jason, please.
If I could, Mr. Vice Mayor, thank you for letting me ask. I just want to highlight one of the things you've heard, and Rob kind of alluded to it there, is part of the reason that we are able to answer Councilmember Schwedhelm's question about what's been occurring over time and why are we being successful even though our trend lines show something different is exactly what the three individuals that gave you the presentation are doing. They're spending all of their time evaluating the products, evaluating the performance, trying to make sure that the materials that are being put in the ground for our benefit have the longest potential and possible life. We're not just doing it to do it. We're not trying to skimp because we only have so much dollar. We want to make sure that that investment, because it's so hard to come by, that investment is done in a way that's going to provide this community with the longest life. And so I do want to say it's a credit to the three individuals you see here that are working for the community to try to extend as much life as we can with the dollars that are being invested. And I love to hear the presentation, the way they did it, because it really highlights the hard work that they're doing. So thank you for indulging me and letting me make that statement for the team.
Thank you, sir. Any additional comments or questions? I see none. With that being said, I'd like to remind folks that no action will be taken on this item. The purpose is to gain information. Let's go ahead and open up public comment. I'd like to remind folks, let folks know that we are now taking public comment on item 3.1. If you wish to make a comment, please raise your hand via Zoom. If you are dialing in via telephone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. You will have 3 minutes for your comment and a countdown timer alert at the conclusion of that period. Deputy City Clerk, are there any Zoom messages or pre-recorded messages?
Vice Mayor, there are no hands being raised via Zoom, and we received no advanced voice message public comments.
Very well. We'll go ahead and bring it back to council and close public comment. Thank you very much all for the presentation, and I do appreciate it greatly. With that, it is now 3:36. Let's go ahead and take a 24-minute break and come back at 4 o'clock, and we will see you then.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Like to inform you, if you did not know, we are currently renovating city council chambers. So we will be transmitting via Zoom. So you have to pardon the dust, so to speak. The time is now 4 o'clock. I see that we do have quorum. Madam City Clerk, if you'd like to call roll.
Yes, thank you. Vice Mayor, Councilmember Schwedhelm,
Here.
Councilmember Sawyer,
Here.
Councilmember Rogers,
Present.
Councilmember McDonald,
Here.
and Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Present.
Mayor Rogers and Councilmember Fleming will be absent at this meeting. So let the record show that all council members are present with the exception of Mayor Rogers and Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you very much. We have no closed session items to report today, nor do we have any proclamations. So we'll go ahead and move on to item 7.1, City Manager, if you'd like to introduce the item.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Alvarez. So item 7.1, COVID-19 response update. So today, President Biden's administration announced efforts to double the number of locations across the country where COVID-fighting antiviral pills by Pfizer are dispensed and ramp up awareness about the life-saving treatments. The Food and Drug Administration has expanded its approval for the COVID-19 treatment remdesivir to include pediatric patients under the age of 12 who test positive for COVID-19 and are hospitalized or high risk. Late last week, the California Department of Public Health unveiled a new Spanish and English language WhatsApp chatbot tools to offer reliable information about COVID-19 to Californians, especially those in the Latino community. California is the first state in the country to launch a tool of this kind. And more information about the local coronavirus response is available at socoemergency.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, are there any questions on item 7.1? Seeing none, Deputy City Clerk, let's go ahead and open up public comment. Are there any comments via Zoom or recorded messages this evening?
For those wishing to make a comment via Zoom, now would be the time to raise your hand for item 7.1. If you're dialing in by telephone, you dial *9. And Vice Mayor, I do not see any hands being raised via Zoom, and we received no pre-recorded voicemail public comments.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and close public comment on item 7.1, and we'll move on to item 8, City Managers, City Attorney's Report. Sue, our awesome City Attorney, would you like to begin today?
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Alvarez. And this afternoon, I do not have anything to report. So thank you.
Thank you. City Manager, do you have anything to report to us this afternoon?
Yes, thank you. I have 2 updates for you today. The first one is the zero waste update. So Santa Rosa is taking the zero waste diversion program to the streets. Our parks and maintenance staff recently installed 3-stream waste diversion bins in Courthouse Square and Depot Park in the Railroad Square. Providing 3-stream waste bins in public spaces aligns with the requirements of SB 1383 regulations and the Santa Rosa Zero Waste Foodware Ordinance. Properly separating and diverting our waste materials in public spaces, at businesses, and at home helps prolong the life of our local landfill and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The bins were obtained as a collaborative effort between Santa Rosa Zero Waste and Zero Waste Sonoma through the Cal Recycle Beverage Container Recycling City County Payment Program Grant. If you're unsure of what goes in the waste cans, you can go to srcity.org/zero waste or zerowastesonoma.gov. Our second update is our water department. So beginning April the 20th, lasting through July the 8th, Santa Rosa Water will be holding a contest to encourage customers to sign up for the new Water Smart portal. The Water Smart portal allows customers to track their hourly, daily, weekly, and monthly water use and create customized notifications for high usage. The tool has become very useful during the drought, assisting our water billing and water use efficiency staff to help our customers save water. The contest will be promoted via social media, bill inserts, and digital advertising. Those who were already registered before the contest will automatically be entered in to win. After the contest ends on July the 8th, 5 registered WaterSmart portal user accounts will be randomly selected to win a $200 credit on their water bill. So customers can go to srcity.org/WaterSmart portal to sign up today for the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, let's go ahead and open up public comment on item 8. I'm sorry. We'll be taking public comment on item 8.1 or 8. If you wish to make a comment, please raise your hand via Zoom. If you are dialing in via telephone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. You will have 3 minutes for your comment and a countdown timer alert at the conclusion of that period. Deputy City Clerk, do you have any Zoom comments or pre-recorded messages this evening?
Vice Mayor, I'm not seeing any hands being raised via Zoom, and we received no advanced public comment voice messages.
People are making it too easy for me today. I appreciate it. We'll go ahead and move on to item 9. Do we have any statements of abstention by my fellow council members this evening? I see shaking heads, so I take that as a no. We'll go ahead and move on to Vice Mayor. Actually, I don't have any reports. So council members, are there any reports this evening? Nothing. I saw a hand somewhere. Let's see. It looks like Councilmember Schwaldham. I'll go with you first.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just a couple items. On the 14th, I attended along with a couple of my colleagues, the Sonoma County mayors and council members, a report or a meeting in Runner Park, and we did give an update on a lot of the homeless efforts for all the council members and staff who are in attendance. And I really appreciate our city manager joining that group. I think that was your first meeting. You're a wonderful addition to that group. Earlier today, some of us had a virtual meeting with Senator Padilla, which was very well. A lot of hot topics that are very important in the city of Santa Rosa were discussed. I really appreciated the senator, his attendance for 15 to 20 minutes. He even name dropped a couple of locations for Santa Rosa. He's very familiar with us. And I really appreciate our fire chief building that relationship, first name basis with the senator. So really, it was a wonderful opportunity to advocate many of the things that the federal government is assisting us in many of our efforts. And lastly, tomorrow, I just want to give council and those listening the heads up. We have both a continuum of care meeting where home base will be given some demographic information about the homeless population. I know I've heard some of my colleagues express some interest there, so that will be a presentation during tomorrow's agenda. You can also see the slide deck that's currently on the Continuum of Care website. And then tomorrow evening at 5:30 at the Vets building, we'll do a groundwater sustainability agency community meeting. Again, it's another opportunity for anyone to learn a little bit more about SGMA and what it means to Santa Rosa and what the steps the Santa Rosa Plain Groundwater Agency is moving towards. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Council Member Rogers.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So for my report today, I would just like to say that I had the pleasure of having lunch with the fleet team and myself and Vice Mayor Alvarez also went to Flat Rock with one of our teams and had a wonderful time out at Flat Rock. Actually, I had never been there, so it's really exciting to meet the wonderful people that we have working for the city of Santa Rosa, and hearing what it is that they do and how they contribute, because it definitely does make a team. Although we are the ones sitting here on Zoom, they are out there working and working very hard to make Santa Rosa the beautiful place that we live in. My meetings at A Place to Play on April 15th were canceled due to weather, but we will be rescheduling those meetings. I really love to get out to our parks and have those meetings. So if anyone would like to schedule a meeting with me, please reach out to Julie Guzzi to do so. I was invited and attended the Santa Rosa Manufactured Home Association meeting on April 16th, which was very nice. And I thank them for their hospitality and bringing me up to date on some of the issues that concern them and what's going on in the mobile home community. Also attended a public safety committee, and I'm thinking Victoria will, excuse me, Councilwoman Flemings will report on that when she returns. And then Earth Day was a huge success, and just thankful to the Litterbug crew, Captain Cregan and some SRPD that came out. The Parks Department really was there in full force, and had everything that we needed. And so if you have an idea or you want to volunteer, we do have that program set up where you can have a group go out, and the parks will help to support you any way that they can. So there's a way to organize that. Do not know the official name, but I do remember it is the cemetery group. How could you forget something about the cemetery? So they were out in full force, and they did help on Earth Day. And then also some other local businesses came out and brought some of their employees to come help on Earth Day. And we were able to clean up one of the parks, Bellevue Ranch, and also Santa Rosa Creek, a portion of the Santa Rosa Creek. So that was really nice. And we did get a lot of trash that needed to be picked up, and were able to spread some mulch. In addition, April 30th, we will have the city manager's first town hall from 10 to 11 at the Finley Center. And there will be additional information about that on the City Connect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any additional reports? Was that a hand raised? Oh, okay, perfect. Councilman McDonald, please.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just since since Councilmember Schwedhelm announced some future meetings, I thought maybe I would announce that the BPU is meeting at 1 o'clock on Thursday. And so that'll be my first meeting to attend that, as the liaisons are meeting with them. So I'm very excited to be on the Board of Public Utilities as that liaison. I met with Santa Rosa's together, and they had some really great ideas on how to engage our neighborhoods and communities so that we can create more opportunities for two-way communication. And so I think some of their ideas have a lot of merit, and I would love to see them connect with our Office of Community Engagement to share some of their thoughts and ideas as we move forward in some of our goals that we set earlier this year. And I know that we had an open government task force meeting that was canceled, and I'm really hopeful that in the near future we'll be able to hold that meeting, because just so I can say I've attended one would be great. And then I also went to the Northern California Engineering Contractors Association meeting, and it was really interesting that the topic today that we discussed came up as far as what roads are being taken care of. The widening of Highway 101 was heavily discussed at that particular meeting, and so it was actually quite helpful coming into today's meeting to hear what we've been doing around the entire county. But that's actually just about it for the meetings that I've had in the last 2 weeks. But thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember. For myself, being that my memory was jogged a bit there by Councilmember Rogers, I also participated in the cleanup of the Bellevue Ranch Park, where we had a lot of fun pulling weeds and spreading mulch. Be surprised how much fun that actually is, especially when you have some of the kids that are waiting or taking a break from school, also participating and picking up garbage as well. So that was very good to see. I also had an opportunity to visit with Officer Matt Crosby over at the training center there off of West College, where we participated in both stops and this high technology 3-screen scenario where it puts you in the midst of different scenarios that our police officers face each and every day. So that was very interesting to to participate in. I also got an opportunity to visit our city, our neighbor city, Petaluma, for their eggs and butter parade and festival. So there was a lot of chicken, and a lot of eggs, and even some ham. So, so I think that's what I was up to. A lot of fun this weekend. Thankfully, the sun is out, the weather is beautiful, and hopefully all Santa Rosans and Sonoma Countyans can actually take part in all these different activities that are now commencing in our neighborhoods. With that said, let's go ahead and open up public comment on item 10. Deputy City Clerk, if you could.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. If you want to make a comment on item 10, please raise your hand via Zoom, dial *9 if you're participating by telephone. Vice Mayor, I see no hands being raised, and I received no advanced public comments on this item.
Very well, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Let's go ahead and move on to item 11, approval of minutes. We have 3 minutes this evening, 11.1, February 22nd, 11.2, February 24th, and 11.3, March 1st. Are there any corrections that are needed on these minutes this evening? I see shaking heads, meaning no, and we'll go ahead without objection. We'll show them as adopted. Without any objections, I see none, and we'll go ahead and move on to our consent items. City Manager Smith, if you could do the honor of introducing our consent items.
Thank you. Tonight we have 8 items on the consent agenda. Item 12.1 is a resolution, Transportation Development Act, TDA, Article 3, grant application for fiscal year 2022 and 2023. Item 12.2, a resolution, Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017, Senate Bill 1, Transportation Funding for fiscal years 2022 and 2023, the project list. Item 12.3 is a resolution, appropriation of grant funds for payment of overdue wastewater charges on customer accounts. Item 12.4 is a resolution, professional services agreement with First 5 Sonoma County for administration of the city's Child Care Support Program Facility Fund and Child College Savings Account Program. Item 12.5 is a resolution, amendment to the city classification and salary plan, creating the classification of single role paramedic and authorize the reclassification of 6 vacant limited term firefighters to 6 limited term single role paramedics for the in-response team. Item 12.6, a resolution, making required monthly findings and authorizing the continued use of teleconferencing for public meetings of the City Council and all city boards, commissions, and committees pursuant to Assembly Bill 361. Item 12.7, a resolution, appropriation of funding for sub-regional bond fund balance and undesignated wastewater reserve fund to UV disinfection project. And item 12.8 is an ordinance adoption, ordinance of the City Council of the City of Santa Rosa to amend Santa Rosa City Code Title 9, Health and Safety Code, Chapter 9-22, bicycles, skateboards, roller skates, inline skates, and similar devices to allow scooters to operate on public streets, public alleys, and public gutters during the City Council approved shared scooter system pilot program. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam City Manager. Madam City Attorney, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you very much. Before the council considers the consent item, the consent calendar, I just wanted to make a note for the record regarding consent item 12.4. 12.4 seeks approval of a professional services agreement with the First 5 Sonoma County Commission for the administration of our new city-funded child and child care programs. Our Economic Development Division Director, Raisa de la Rosa, has been very instrumental in crafting the program and in preparing the professional services agreement. As a matter of disclosure, I do want to note for the record that Ms. De La Rosa is a commissioner on the first 5 commission. So there was a question that was raised as to whether Government Code Section 1090 presented any concerns regarding her involvement in this item and in the program. And I want to assure you that Section 1090 does not preclude her involvement under these circumstances. Ms. De La Rosa has no financial interest in the contract, and Government Code Sections 1091.5 and 1091.3 do permit her continued and really very valuable engagement in this effort. Section 1091.5 does require that her position as commissioner be disclosed on the record. So that's what I'm doing here. I'll also note that in her role as commissioner on first 5, she has recused herself from any discussions of this program and this agreement. But for purposes of her work for the city, she is free to proceed. So with that noted for the record, I invite the council to continue with the consent calendar. So thank you.
Thank you for the disclosure. With that, council, do we have any questions on the consent calendar this afternoon? Seeing none, let's go ahead. Oh, I see one. Council Member McDonald, if you'd like to.
Sure. I would just like to pull item 12.4 to have a conversation about that separate from the consent.
Thank you. With that, being no other questions or comments on the consent, we'll go ahead and open the public comment on our consent calendar. Madam Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. To make a public comment on the consent calendar, please raise your hand now via Zoom. If you're participating by telephone, please dial *9. Vice Mayor, I'm seeing no hands being raised via Zoom. Additionally, there were no advanced public comments on this item.
Very well. We'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to council. Councilman Sawyer, if you would do us the honors of putting forth a motion with the exception of item 12.4.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So I'll move consent items 12.1 through 12.3 and 12.5 through 12.8.
Second.
I believe we have a motion by Councilman Sawyer and a second by Council Member Rogers. Let's see. Madam City Clerk, can we have a roll call on the motion put forth?
Thank you. Councilmember Schwedhelm?
Aye.
Councilmember Sawyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers?
Aye.
Councilmember McDonald?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alvarez?
Aye.
That motion passes with 5 ayes, with Councilmember Fleming absent and Mayor Rogers absent.
Thank you. On item 12.4 for discussion, Councilmember McDonald.
Thank you. I actually just pulled this item because I spoke to the executive director of First 5 to ask her if there needed to be any type of consideration for Santa Rosa residents, if everyone was able to participate, meaning do they have to be a citizen? Does it matter their immigration status? And if there was something in the language that actually did not let some of our families participate. And she assured me that that was not the case, that all Santa Rosa residents are eligible to participate if they meet the requirements. And she asked that we get the word out that they've been doing this program for about 9 months and that many of our families are unaware that this is available to them. And so the whole purpose of me pulling the item was certainly just to let people know this is a special program that we have for the city of Santa Rosa for our families and for children to make sure that they are given a leg up and that they have an opportunity to attend college or career and have some money set aside from them. So please get the word out to the council and to others that this is available to them. And I'm really proud of us doing this for children in our community. It certainly has been part of my goal is working in education, but But more than anything, I'm really proud that everyone in our community has an opportunity to participate. And that's really admirable, I believe, for us to do for our residents in Santa Rosa. That's it.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Rogers.
Where can people find additional information about this program if they would like to look it up after today's meeting?
Hi, good afternoon. Raisa De La Rosa, Economic Development Division. This item before you is actually for the professional services agreement with First Five. There's an overview of the Child College Savings Account program that currently exists that is Sonoma County wide, that includes Santa Rosa, but is not specific to what we're asking for today. Information is available on the First Five website. And you can get that information there. As to the facility fund that we're doing, again, the purpose of this contract is to further develop that and get that up and running. And that also will be found on both the City of Santa Rosa website as well as First Five's website. But the specifics of what's included in the professional services agreement today is not yet available to the public. Just the overview is available on First Five.
Thank you. Any additional comments or questions?
No, thank you for clarifying that, though. I appreciate that.
And Councilmember McDonald, I appreciate you highlighting the question. And the fear is definitely a factor in the Spanish-speaking community. So I do appreciate you bringing those issues forward. Thank you very much. Councilman Sawyer, would you like to make a motion on item 12.4, I believe?
Yes. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move consent item 12.4.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Sawyer and a second by Councilmember McDonald. Madam City Clerk, can I have you call the roll?
Councilmember Schwedhelm.
Aye.
Councilmember Sawyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember McDonald.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Aye.
That motion passes with 5 ayes, with Mayor Rogers and Councilmember Fleming absent.
Very well, seeing that we are not at 5 o'clock, we will skip 13, public comment on non-agenda matters, and we'll go ahead and move on to item 14.2, report item. If I could have Jason Nutt, Assistant City Manager, come forward.
Vice Mayor Alvarez, are we
Yes.
going to skip over 14.1?
I'm sorry, I did not. That's right. There's a one before the two, isn't there? Chris Bangin from Associate Civil Engineers. If I could have him step forward, please.
Great. Item 14.1 is a report, rejection of bid protest, contract award for Fulton Road from Guerneville Road to Piner Road and to widen to 4 lanes. Thank you.
Very well. Do we have Chris? There he is.
Hi, good evening.
Sir?
I'm doing well. Well, thank you, Vice Mayor Alvarez and Council Member. My name is Chris Cabagan. I'm a project manager with TPW's Capital Improvement Projects team. I'm presenting report item 14.1. TPW is seeking the rejection of a bid protest and is recommending a contract award for the Fulton Road widening project from Guerneville Road to Piner Road. Next slide, please. The Fulton Road widening project was identified in Santa Rosa's 2035 general plan as an arterial and regional road to be widened to improve circulation, safety, and operations along Fulton Road. The segment of Fulton Road between Guerneville Road to Piner Road is a 1 mile long road segment, which has $7 million in program construction funds from SCTA's Measure M funding. The proposed widened road would include additional vehicle travel lanes, bicycle lanes, widen sidewalks, bus stops, stormwater treatment facilities, landscaping, traffic signals, utility relocations, installations of retaining walls, and over 40 different easement acquisitions. Next slide, please. So the city has already completed a road section extending from Wood Road to Piner Road. This was completed in 2008. As part of our 2015 Sonoma County Transportation Authority Cooperative Agreement, the widening of Fulton Road would continue south of Piner Road to Guerneville Road, which is the second half of phase 1. This cooperative agreement defines the framework to enable SCTA and the city to work together in developing the transportation improvements on Fulton Road. Next slide, please. So again, Fulton Road is a crucial corridor, providing access to residents, high school, preschools, the youth community park, a shopping center, a church, and other public amenities such as creeks, trails, and buses. Next slide, please. So the project was advertised with plans and specifications on February 2nd, 2022. A bid opening was conducted on March 8th, 2022. A total of 5 bids were received, ranging from $15,578,565 to $19,823,672.80. The lowest responsive and responsible bid was 9.56% over the engineer's estimate. I want to note that our design consultant reviewed and analyzed the lowest bid. They've concluded that nothing stands out as inappropriate, but also added that we are indeed in a volatile market. The low bid was made by a joint venture between Gelati Brothers and FBD Vanguard Construction Incorporated. A bid protest was made by the second lowest bidder, Argonet Constructors Incorporated. Next slide, please. So Argonet Constructors, again, the second lowest bid, has argued that the joint venture demonstrated an irregularity which could be viewed as a non-responsive because a submitted bid item exceeded the mandatory dollar limit. City staff and the city attorney's office reviewed the bid documents, included the lowest bid did contain a minor irregularity. However, no competitive advantage was demonstrated. The irregularity was minor and it may be waived. And again, it was a minor because it offered no competitive advantage. Next slide, please. So it should be mentioned construction is anticipated to begin May 2022. Construction is expected to end before December 2023. And the length of the contract is approximately 400 working days. Next slide, please. So moving forward, council may decide between 3 options. One, they can waive the minor irregularity in the low bid and award the contract to the joint venture Gelati Brothers Incorporated / FBD Vanguard Construction Incorporated. 2, find the low bid non-responsive and award the bid to Argonet Constructors Incorporated. Or 3, reject all bids and re-advertise the project. Next slide, please. So TPW is making the recommendation for council to 1, reject the bid protest by Argonet Constructors. 2, waive any minor irregularities in the lowest bid. 3, award contract number CO 1178, Fulton Road from Guerneville Road to Piner Road, widened to 4 lanes, in the amount of $15,578,565 to the lowest responsible bidder, Gelati Brothers and FBD Vanguard Construction Incorporated of San Rafael, California. And 4, approve a 10% contract contingency and authorize a total contract amount of $17,136,421.50. That I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chris. Council, are there any questions this afternoon or comments? Seeing none, let's go ahead and open item 14.1 for public comment. Madam Deputy Clerk, are there any recorded messages or Zoom comments this afternoon?
Vice Mayor, we received no pre-recorded public comments on this item, and at this point, I'm seeing no hands being raised via Zoom or via telephone.
Very well. Let's go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to council. Council, again, are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, Council Member Schwolhelm, I believe this is your item.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I move a resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Rosa rejecting the bid protest by Argonet Constructors Incorporated, waiving any irregularities in the lowest bid, and awarding contract C01178 to Gelati Brothers Incorporated, FBD Vanguard Construction Incorporated of San Rafael, California, with a contract contingency for the construction of a Fulton Road widening project between Guerneville Road and Piner Road, and waive further reading of the text.
Very well, we have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Council Member Sawyer. Madam City Clerk, would you like to call the roll?
Thank you.
For the vote, I'm sorry.
Councilmember Schwedhelm,
Aye.
Councilmember Sawyer,
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers,
Aye.
Councilmember McDonald,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Aye.
That motion passes with 5 ayes, with Mayor Rogers and Councilmember Fleming absent.
Very well. Let's go ahead and move on to item 14.2, seeing that we're still before 5 o'clock. And presenting this one will be Assistant City Manager Jason Nett. There you are. How you doing, sir?
Doing well, Vice Mayor. Thank you very much, Vice Mayor and council members. Jason Nutt, Assistant City Manager. It's my pleasure to bring this item to you today. The intent is to request that council consider amending the advertising policy that was approved in December of 2018 to accommodate some additional advertising in our ball fields and associated facilities. And so next slide, please. As I mentioned, the advertising policy and guidelines were approved by council on December the 4th, 2018 by resolution 2018-217. Unfortunately, that resolution, because of processing and timeline, did reflect an erroneous policy number, which was policy 00-69. And we've made that correction as a part of this process to reflect the actual policy number that's reflected in the record, which is 00-70. As approved, the advertising policy and guidelines really relate specifically to transit operations and the facilities that transit maintains, manages, and utilizes. The intent was originally to try to be able to provide other departments with this opportunity, but from the standpoint of this being the first chance that we've had to utilize advertising within city facilities, council requested that we narrow the scope and focus specifically on transit as they had the most immediate need. There were 18 specific categories relating to specific content that council debated, discussed, and developed specific standards to help address and regulate how those would be incorporated into various advertising programs. Next slide, please. These are the 18 specific items that we addressed. Many of these had some level of alteration during the course of deliberations with council back in December of 18. But for the most part, each were given some opportunity to ensure that advertising that comes forward on city facilities, facility equipment, and city on city electronic media allowed certain businesses to be able to provide to advertise while reducing the amount of potential conflict and concerns associated with other potential injurious items. Next slide. Now, the reason we're bringing this forward is because 2 weeks ago, council approved a license agreement with the Pecos Professional Baseball League. And part of that agreement allows them to utilize advertising at the ball field, which is Doyle Park, and some associated facilities out there to help not just ensure that certain improvements get made and maintained to their benefit for the use of that field, but also that they can help fund some of the operations of the staff and the players that are within their organization. Staff feels that that's a reasonable request and that we should be able to expand this particular policy with the specific language of for licensed agreements that come out of recreation and parks. And it should help us not only for Pecos in helping making them successful, but it should also allow us potentially find success with other leagues that want to come forward for other ball fields around town that want to utilize advertising to potentially improve the field, as well as make our facilities around those fields better and more sustainable into the future. Next slide. So in working with the city attorney's office, looking at other municipal organizations, we determined that there was reason to allow Pecos to utilize this policy. We feel the policy is consistent and adequate for Pecos to be able to see the additional revenue that would help them do their operations. And we feel that extending the existing policy to incorporate these types of license agreements specifically for Pecos, as well as potentially future leagues, is beneficial to the organization. The way we did reflect this in the draft policy, as you see on the attachments, does state that it's specific to license agreements. The benefit of identifying license agreements is those are documents that will be specifically approved by council at this point. And so if recreation suggests that another league come forward and have access to this, it will be reflected in the license agreement that council would be able to consider, evaluate, and either approve or disapprove at that point in time. So it gives us more flexibility by amending the policy so that we can take advantage of those opportunities as they come forward on a case-by-case basis. Next slide. And with that, it's recommended by the city manager's office that the council by resolution amend council policy 000-70 entitled Advertising Policy and Guidelines, expanding the authority to include ball fields and associated facilities as allowed through license agreements issued by the Recreation Division. And I'm here to answer any additional questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. I do see a question from Councilman Sawyer.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Knott, I'm curious, as far as items coming back before council, is it the suggestion that the operators or that the ball clubs would need to submit their advertising request to the council as opposed to letting staff handle that?
Councilmember Sawyer, great question. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. No, the intent is that the advertising or that the entity that's requesting the license agreement would be responsible for compliance with our policy. They wouldn't be asking council for approval of anything other than the ability to sell and display advertising. And so that's the language that would be included in a license agreement. It would not be the content, and it would not be any specifics associated with the advertising itself. As you saw in the staff report, and as I can explain now, the particular agreement relating to Pecos, Recreation Division actually did outline specific dimensions, specific styles, and expectations of any advertising media that would be allowed on the field or on the facilities adjacent to it. It's in that document as part of the license agreement where the details would be displayed and explained and approved more by Recreation, but the license agreement itself does require council approval. The license agreement would be exclusive use and rights for that particular league for that specific field, and only council can authorize those under our current regulations.
Excellent. Thank you for the clarification.
Councilman Swalham.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Thank you, Jason, for this. Hey, I just had a question regarding the advertisement, remembering the robust discussions we had. What's kind of new for me is that they're selling alcohol, which I don't think occurs at any other events on that ball field. So just confirming that no advertisement regarding alcohol, whether or not they're targeting selling it to youth, but no alcohol advertisements will be at Doyle Park. Is that correct?
Actually, our policy does allow alcohol advertisements, but restricts the images that can be placed on that advertisement itself. And so there is the potential for alcohol advertising to occur.
I guess maybe offline, because as I read this section, the second part of the sentence specifically dealing with alcohol talks about targeting underage drinking, but the first part says there will be no advertising of alcoholic beverages. Can you kind of confirm that?
Yes, allow me to dig in and confirm that.
Item 2.6.4.
Hold on for a moment. I apologize for the delay. There it is.
Councilmember, are there any additional questions that you may have, Councilman Suarez?
Well, let them get that, because it's another one for Jason.
Yeah, my apologies. It took me a second. I pushed the wrong buttons. There we go.
Been there, done that.
Yes, I apologize. Council member. You are absolutely correct. It does prohibit the advertising of alcoholic beverages as well as cannabis and tobacco.
Okay, thank you on that. And
my apologies.
No worries. One of the other things that in the staff report, and I heard during your presentation, the words can and could. So if this increased revenue, it may lead to additional revenue for future improvements. My understanding of our current contract is that the city is responsible for the maintenance and improvements of the field. So even though it could, there's no contractual obligation by the scuba divers or anyone else from the Pecos League to add revenue to help improve our facilities. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. That is accurate. There are some things that the league itself will need to make modification for their use and their benefit, and they may use the revenue from here to make that, but it won't be to the general field improvements. Those would be things that may be included in the future as they become successful. Because we're going to have a successful team moving forward. Then there may be additional revenue sharing opportunities for the city and the Pecos League moving at that point. Similarly, as we look at other leagues that may want to come forward for other facilities, we may have an opportunity to incorporate some revenue sharing in order to make some of those improvements happen. That's why I use those words that are aspirational rather than definitive.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions on item 14.2? Seeing none, let's go ahead and open up public comment. *9 on your phone, raise your hand on Zoom. You do have 3 minutes to make your comments. Deputy City Clerk, are there any Zoom?
We do have a hand up, Vice Mayor. The first public comment will be from Scott.
Very well.
Scott, go ahead with your comment.
Can you hear me?
I can.
I can.
Very good. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. My name is Scott Chapman, and my children are both students at the Village Charter School in Santa Rosa. The address is 2590 Piner Road. We share our campus with a charter high school called Northwest Prep. The space immediately west of our campus is a city-owned and controlled green space. It has vernal pools and other things that are a protected green space. A homeless camp has come into being in the green space, and I am hoping that the council will help us get this camp shut down. We went through this a few years ago in 2019 when a similar camp started in the exact same location. It took many, many months to just get an understanding of what jurisdiction had control over it. The county claimed it was the city's and vice versa. Finally, we were able to figure out that it was in fact the city's property and under the Parks and Rec Department. While we were trying to get that all figured out, our school was vandalized, robbed. All of our tools that donated by myself and other parents for the wood shop were stolen. All of the shovels, rakes, and other tools for our school garden were stolen. Our utilities were stolen. They rigged up a shower. They stole our electricity. They threatened teachers At one point, a homeless man entered our after-school room and accosted a young teacher and several students demanding keys to our bathrooms. The school was unsafe. Our teachers did not feel they could stay after hours to work because they feared for their safety. Again, it took quite a long time to get it taken care of. I'm hoping that the city council will help us nip it in the bud now while it's small. There's already been a fire. Last week, they set a fire. The fire department arrived and was hesitant to put it out because they told us they were not prepared to tackle a fire in a homeless encampment. We all know what that means. They didn't have what they needed to handle drug paraphernalia like needles and potentially weapons and other things. We are trying to work with the city. I'm just looking for any assistance that the council can offer us to make sure that we don't go through what we went through in 2019, where our school became so unsafe that we feared for our teachers and children's safety while they were on campus. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Although your comment was not related to the advertisement and associated facilities, I have made notes of your comments, so I do appreciate them, sir. Do we have any additional comments this evening?
We have no additional hands raised, Vice Mayor, and there were no pre-recorded public comments.
Very well. We'll go ahead and close public comment on 14.2. Are there any additional comments or questions? Seeing none, let's go ahead and put a motion on the table. Councilmember McDonald, if you could.
Yes, thank you. I move resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Rosa amending Council Policy number 000-70 titled Advertising Policy and Guidelines to include advertising at ball fields and associated facilities and waive further reading of the text.
We have a motion on the table. Do I hear a second?
Second?
Was that Councilman Sawyer?
Yes.
Very well, thank you. And a second by Councilman Sawyer. Any further discussion on item 14.2? Seeing none, Deputy City Clerk, can we have a vote?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Schwedhelm.
Aye.
Councilmember Sawyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember McDonald.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Aye.
That motion passes with 5 ayes, with Mayor Rogers and Councilmember Fleming absent.
Thank you very much. Let me see what time it is. It's 4:52. We will take an 8-minute break and we will see you in 8 minutes at 5 o'clock on the dot. Thank you. Seeing that we do have quorum and it is now 5 o'clock, Madam City Clerk, could I have you call roll, please?
Thank you. Councilmember Schwedhelm,
Here.
Councilmember Sawyer, Councilmember Rogers,
Present.
Councilmember McDonald,
Here.
Vice Mayor Alvarez,
Present, and I do see that he does, Councilman Sawyer's.
Councilmember Sawyer, have you joined the meeting?
I have, thank you.
Thank you. Let the record show that all council members are present with the exception of Mayor Rogers and Councilmember Fleming.
No, thank you. Seeing that we did skip item 13 as it was prior to 5 o'clock, we will go back to item 13 before we proceed with item 14.3. So let's go ahead and open up public comment on non-agenda matters. And I'll go ahead and read my little statement here. We are now taking public comment on item 13, non-agenda matters. This is the time when any person may address the council on matters not listed on this agenda, but which are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. If you wish to make a comment, please raise your hand via Zoom. If you are dialing in via telephone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. We will take 12 speakers under item 13 if we have more than 12 public comments on item 13. The remaining speakers will be afforded the opportunity to speak on item 17, non-agenda matters, to provide public comment. Deputy City Clerk, do we have any comments this evening on the non-agenda items?
We do, Mayor. The first public comment will be from Gregory.
Very well.
Gregory, I've enabled your speaking permissions. Please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Gregory Farron, Vice Mayor Alvarez, and members of the council. As you know, I periodically come on this forum and tell you the things that I think you're doing wrong, that you should improve on, and the things you're doing right that I think you ought to promote and tell everybody about. This is one of those second ones. This is something you've done that I think you should be applauded for and that you should share widely with the community. What am I talking about? At the recent Housing Authority meeting, staff presented something that I've been trying to figure out a way of getting for a long time. And it's a chart showing all of the low-income housing projects that are in progress or are about ready to open. There's 16 of them on there. The city is spending $50 million on these projects, and the chart shows a lot of very interesting, very important, very useful information. The full cost of all the projects is almost $1 billion, and it's wonderful. And so if I encourage you all to go or ask the city manager to share it with you to the Housing Authority agenda, the last meeting they just had. I want to thank the staff, and I've asked that the supervisor or the person who did it to be notified that at least one guy out here thinks it's great. And I want to, they say they update it every month. I'd like to see it updated every week, but I'd love to be able to have it on your website. I'd love to be able to have citizens of Santa Rosa go directly to your website and find out every housing project that has been approved by you and that has been given project certificates or other monies, and what they're going to be doing. What percentage is going to be low, what percentage is going to be very low. All the information that someone who's looking for housing and who wants to see our city change needs to know. And it's there, it's ready for anybody to see, and I stumbled on it. So I think you need to make it much more available, and I thank you for doing it.
Thank you, Gregory. We do appreciate the compliment, sir. Do we have any additional comments?
We do, Mayor. The next public comment will be from Mark. Mark, I've enabled your speaking permissions. Please go ahead with your comment.
Mark, are you there? One more time, Mark.
If you're participating via telephone, dial *6 to unmute yourself.
Do we have any additional comments other than Mark's by any chance?
Vice Mayor, we don't have any additional hands being raised via Zoom, but we do have a pre-recorded voicemail public comment. Perhaps
Yes,
we can
please.
circle back.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Will do.
Public comment, non-agenda items. Dwayne DeWitt from Roseland. Congratulations to Vice Mayor Eddie Alvarez for being the leader of today's meeting. I'm hoping that Mr. Alvarez is going to be treated with better respect by various departments of Santa Rosa city government in the future. Over in Roseland, we need Mr. Alvarez to be that leader and voice of reason to get our issues taken care of, because the police department is not responding to calls about camping on public land, which is against the city ordinance, or dumping on public land, which is against the city ordinance. The city of Santa Rosa has taken on the stewardship of a conservation easement of 11.5 acres at 1027 to 1370 Burbank Avenue, land that was deeded over after the Sonoma County Agricultural Preservation and Open Space District purchased the land with taxpayers' money. The city of Santa Rosa agreed that they would take care of that land and that they would steward it. Well, what's happened now is campers, behavioral health transient vagrants have gone in there and are trashing the land, dumping on the land, and the city is not maintaining that spot. The city can maintain it and is required according to the conservation easement. They cannot use an excuse of COVID or possible litigation or anything else. They need to be in there taking care of that land, getting the behavioral health transient vagrants off of the property and all of that mess and dump that they've put in there off the land. Over at the mud pit on Stony Point Road, that's private land, so the city makes the excuse can't do anything. Well, this is city land. This is the taxpayers own it, and the city needs to get in there and take care of its responsibilities. We know that our council member, Eddie Alvarez, current vice mayor, is going to step up and help represent for Roseland to get this done. So thank you very much, Mr. Alvarez. You rock on for Roseland now.
Vice Mayor, that was the only public comment received in advance for the evening. Would you like to circle back to see if Mr. Mark can raise his hand?
Yes, please.
And it looks like he is no longer on the meeting, Vice Mayor.
Very well. We'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back. That was item 13, public comment on non-agendas items, matters, I mean. With that, let's go ahead and move on to item 14.3. We have Kimberly Zunino. Good
Item
afternoon.
14.3 is a report approval of the preliminary fiscal year 2022-2023 regional water reuse system operating and maintenance, capital improvement, and debt service budget and allocation of cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Vice Mayor and members of the council. Today I am here to request preliminary approval of Santa Rosa Water's regional system budget. We are required to bring you this item ahead of the other citywide approvals in order to notify our regional partner agencies of their responsibility for the upcoming fiscal budget. This gives them time to complete their budget processes in their own agencies. Next slide, please. As an overview of what we will be discussing today, we will talk about the budget drivers, expenditures, what each partner's contribution is, our CIP funding, and the budget schedule. Next slide, please. I want to provide you with some background on the regional system before we discuss the budget. There are 5 partners in the regional system: Santa Rosa, Rohnert Park, Cotati, Sebastopol, and South Park Sanitation District, with Santa Rosa being the owner and operator of the treatment plant. The partners entered into the sub-regional agreement in 1975. We have made multiple amendments to that agreement over the years to accommodate changes in capacity. And the agreement defines the terms for each partner, which includes their allocation of costs for operations and maintenance, CIP, and debt service. You can see by the map here, it is a large system that provides treatment of wastewater from these communities, which results in typically 100% reuse of highly treated wastewater. Next slide, please. The major budget drivers are pretty consistent year over year. The treatment plant is a 24-hour operation that is required to comply with a significant number of regulations that continue to change over the years and require that staff make any necessary modifications to the operations and/or monitoring processes to assure compliance. We provide recycled water to the geysers per our agreement with Calpine, which results in the production of clean energy. And finally, which we'll talk about a little bit more later in the presentation, our plant is aging and requiring more maintenance now. Next slide, please. Here we're just summarizing some of the more significant increases in the O&M budget this year. We are seeing several increases in the O&M cost this year, and I am just highlighting some of them here. There is an increase in salaries and benefits from the completed negotiations with the various bargaining units. We are seeing increases in professional services. This is due to various programs that will require some assistance this year, some outside assistance. O&M projects are significantly up due to environmental mitigation work and component failures at the plant, which I'll provide some detail on in the next couple of slides. One thing we have seen this year is increases in many areas that are out of our control. Energy costs, vehicle costs, operational supplies, insurance, and IT costs are all increasing at a total of about $1.3 million. We are also increasing the regional CIP fund by $1 million. We have agreed with our partners that we will increase the cash funding by $1 million yearly. So that's what that increase is for. And then finally, we are also requesting 1 additional staff member this year. A new state regulation that has been imposed requires all certified environmental labs, which ours is, to comply with the NELAC Institute standards. And this requirement calls for even higher quality assurance data tracking, which this position will assist in achieving. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, we have had a significant number of issues at the plant this year. This is the reason for us requesting an increase to our budget for maintenance projects. And I thought I would go through several of the projects that we had this year that came up as an emergency, just to give you some context and some indication of the extent of our need. So starting with October 24th, 2021, this was during the atmospheric rivers that we experienced in the region. There was a significant amount of work to respond and recover from. We had a critical valve failure, which risked overtopping our primary tanks, which mechanics were able to manually operate and repair and avoid any significant issues. There was also some flooding, which you can see in the top left picture. In addition, we had more water coming into the plant than we could treat. So there was 300 million gallons of wastewater that had to be diverted to a holding pond and be sent back through the plant to be treated. The top right picture is the temporary system that was implemented to move that water. In November, we had an aeration pipe failure, which was a big concern. A large underground pipe conveys massive amounts of air to our aeration tanks for biological treatment of the wastewater, and the plant cannot even go a full day without providing air to those tanks. So an emergency contract had to be secured to provide a temporary solution above ground, and we are now in the design phase for the project to replace that piping. There's actually a video where the picture is shown here with the sound of escaping air, which is a lot more impressive but we'll leave that with the picture since video seems to create some issues in the virtual world. On Christmas Eve, we had a pump failure that created a polymer spill. Polymer is used at the treatment plant to aid in the coagulation of solids within the wastewater. And thanks to the quick action by both our regional and local crews, none of the spilled polymer made it to the storm drain system and the issue was resolved. Next slide, please. The fun continued just a few days later for us when we had a sinkhole at the plant that was created from that aeration pipe that was failing. The picture on the top left shows you the sinkhole, which was about 15 feet deep. To assure there were no more issues with that piping, we quickly CCTV'd the pipe and did additional exploratory excavation to be sure that we had no other possible issues. This has since been filled and paved over. Then in January, staff noticed that dewatering of one of our digesters was not working. Digesters are used to break down and stabilize raw sludge into digested sludge, which then can be used for land application or turned into compost. And at the time of this plug, one of our other digesters was offline for maintenance, which meant we had to resolve the issue very quickly. Our mechanics and on-call crews were able to create the temporary fix seen in the second picture and have since cleared the plug. And then finally, the bottom picture is a temporary pipe installed because of a recycled water main break. That main provides recycled water to the plant where we use that water in various processes. It also created some flooding that had to be addressed. So our crews had to again act quickly and shut down any of the affected equipment and repair the pipe. Our crews were able to avoid any serious issues and an on-call contractor was brought in to make the permanent repair. So as you can see, we felt it was incredibly important that we increase funding for our maintenance projects this year to try to avoid other possible failures in the future. And I'd also like to add that our crews are pretty amazing, and the fact that their skill and dedication avoided any serious issues through all of these emergencies truly highlights the great work that they do. Next slide, please. So every year we provide you with the O&M budget broken out by line items in categories. This year, there are many increases that you're seeing that are uncontrolled, as I mentioned before. So here we've decided to circle those expenditures to identify the specific items. The line items that are increasing and within our control are the O&M projects and the professional services, as mentioned previously. Next slide, please. This chart gives you the operating costs, the cash funded CIP expenditures, without the debt service that is also included in the total allocation. At the top right, you will see the total operating costs, the CIP costs, but you will also see there is an increase there for operating reserve. The operating reserves are required to remain at a 15% of costs, of operating costs per policy. And because there are 5 partners, we also need to allocate this amount with the budget. At the bottom right, you see the total of those proposed budget expenditures minus revenues. There are some revenues that come into the plant that are fully beneficial to the regional system alone, and therefore are collected. Those revenues that are collected go directly into the fund and are then removed from the total allocation to the partners. The total amount to be allocated to our partners minus the debt service, as indicated on the bottom left, or the bottom right, I'm sorry, is $44.65 million. Next slide, please. Here we are identifying the total contribution from each of our partners as proposed, which include the total from that last slide you just saw and the debt service. Due to the nature of very large projects at the treatment plant, there is a significant amount of debt service as shown here. The most recent being the bond funding that was secured last year for the ultraviolet disinfection replacement project, which was also one of your consent items today because we are preparing to award that contract and begin construction on that big project. Each piece of the budget is allocated based on the sub-regional agreement, but they are all slightly different. The O&M costs are distributed based on the last full year of actual metered flows to the treatment plant. The allocation of costs are determined by taking the total O&M expenditures and then removing those miscellaneous net revenues, adding back in the operating reserve required, and then allocating that total number out to each of the partners based on their percentage of flow. The capital improvement cash funding is allocated by percentages also, but those percentages are defined in the sub-regional agreements. And then finally, debt service is based on the projects the debt was issued for. The final outcome, as you can see here, is the total responsibility of each of our partners, including Santa Rosa Water's share. Next slide, please. I wanted to provide you with a visual breakdown of all of the proposed regional expenditures by category as currently planned. This chart gives you the full picture by including the reduction in the projected miscellaneous revenues, as well as that required increase to the operating reserves. Next slide, please. And finally, the CIP cash funding in the regional fund, as previously mentioned, is $9 million this year, and it does increase yearly. This is just providing you with the distribution of funding by category. You will see the full list of proposed projects with the citywide budget review. Next slide, please. And as you can see here, we're just showing you our budget schedule. We have a lot of stops before we come and see you. We meet with our regional partners to go over our regional budget. We meet with the budget subcommittee to go over all of our budgets. We meet with the full BPU, and then we're here with you today to request a preliminary approval of the regional budget. And then you will also see this budget included with all of the other budgets at the study sessions on May 10th and 11th. And then for proposed budget adoption on June 21st. Next slide, please. So it is recommended by Santa Rosa Water, the Sub-Regional Technical Advisory Committee, and the Board of Public Utilities that the council, by resolution, approve the preliminary 2022-23 Regional Water Reuse System Operating and Maintenance, Capital Improvement, and Debt Service Budget, and allocation of costs for the purpose of notifying the regional water reuse user agencies of their allocations of such costs by May of 2022. Next slide. And with that, I am here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Kimberly. Council, are there any questions? Seeing none, let's go ahead and open up public comment. Madam Deputy Clerk, do we have any comments on Zoom or pre-recorded messages on item 14.3?
Vice Mayor, I'm not seeing any hands raised via Zoom. You moved very quickly, so I couldn't get the slide up. And we received no pre-recorded public comments on this item either.
I appreciate that very much. Let's see here. Council Member Rogers, I believe this is your motion.
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. I move a resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Rosa approving the preliminary fiscal year 2022 and 2023 regional water reuse system operating and maintenance, capital improvement, and debt service budget and allocation of costs, and waive further reading of the text.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
There we go. We have a second by Council Member Schwellham. Any discussion on this item before we put it up for vote? Seeing none. Madam City Clerk, can we call the vote?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Schwedhelm.
Aye.
Councilmember Sawyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember McDonald.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Aye.
That motion passes with 5 ayes, with Mayor Rogers and Councilmember Fleming absent.
Very well. And before we go to item 14.4, we'll do a little skipping around. Let's go ahead and take care of item 15.1, our single public hearing for the evening. City Manager, would you like to take this item?
Item 15.1 is a public hearing. TEFRA public hearing and issuance of bonds by the California Municipal Finance Authority in an aggregated amount not to exceed $40 million for our Riviera Apartments an affordable rental housing project located at 1385 West College Avenue. Angela Morgan, Program Specialist in the Housing and Community Services, will present. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the introduction and of the item tonight. Again, my name is Angela Morgan with the Housing and Community Services team. I have, good evening, first off. The item before you today is the request to hold a public hearing and approve the issuance of bonds for the Aviara Apartments project. Next slide, please. Jurisdictions are required to hold a public hearing, receive public comment, and approve bond issuance consistent with the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act of 1983 and Internal Revenue Code. This action will not result in any fiscal impact to the general fund, and the financial responsibility shall be of the borrower. In this case, the borrower shall be MM Aviara LP, and the developer is Chelsea Investments Corporation. Next slide, please. The proposed project will create new affordable housing units located at 1385 West College Avenue. The project is adjacent to the G&G Shopping Center, which includes a grocery store, restaurants, beauty salons, a bank, a shipping store, and a clothing store. In December 2021, the site obtained its approvals and necessary entitlements to build the 136 units as presented to you today. Next slide, please. Once the developer has obtained and closed on the necessary project financing to complete the project, it anticipates the commencement of construction by June 2022 and completion by December 2023. The project will further Council Tier 1 goals by meeting housing needs within the city's jurisdiction. The project will provide deeply affordable housing opportunities in Santa Rosa, restricted to households with incomes ranging between 30 to 60% of area median income. Next slide, please. The recommendation before you today is 1, conduct a public hearing under the requirements of the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act of 1983 and the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended, and 2, by resolution, approve the issuance of revenue bonds by the California Municipal Finance Authority in an aggregate amount not to exceed $40 million to finance or refinance the acquisition, construction, improvement, and equipping of Aviara Apartments, an affordable rental housing project located at 1385 West College Avenue, Santa Rosa. Next slide, please. This concludes the presentation. In addition to myself, we have Ben Barker from CMFA, the bond issuer, Teresa and Heidi from Chelsea Investments Corporation to answer any questions that any of you may have.
Thank you, Angela. Council, are there any questions? I do have a question. And there's a property to the west of the property, the site. It doesn't have a parcel number. Is that part of this property, or is that just simply a misprint on the map presented?
We do have the someone from the development team that can answer that question. Thank you.
Yes. Hello, this is Teresa Pekalski of Chelsea Investment Corporation. The APN not noted, and I'm not sure if you're able to go back to the map, but that is not part of the project. It is just the project labeled.
Very well. I appreciate that very much. Council, any questions? Seeing none, let's go ahead and open up public comment. *9 if you're calling via phone. Raise your hand if you're on Zoom. Madam City Deputy Clerk, are there any comments or pre-recorded messages on our public hearing tonight?
Looks like we have a couple hands raised, Vice Mayor. The first public comment will be from Gail, followed by Gregory. Gail, I've enabled your permissions to speak. Please unmute yourself and proceed with your comment.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
I'm new to this subject, but I did want to listen in, and I heard that there would be a range of 30 to 60% of the income that was stated. And I'm wondering why such a broad range. Will that be decided later? Or do we need to know now? Is there going to be one apartment available at a 30% and the rest at 60%? So I'm very curious about that. And you, I'm sure, have the answers. I just wanted to raise my concern. In this community, we have a dearth of housing, especially a dearth of low-income housing. As you all know, we need many stepping stones of housing. This is one of them. We need more safe parking lots, even if it's a rotating safe parking curb, so that one month we have a certain length of curb in front of a certain park available with a porta potty and sanitation, and then we move it another month to another community so that our communities don't feel put upon. We need tiny houses, just like the shelters that are being put up out at COTS in Petaluma, just like the shelters, the houses, tiny houses that are out at Los Gulicos. Then we need a stepping stone range for our unhoused and for our housed and for our wanting to be housed students, new people to the society, young people that are just getting started. And so I'm very concerned about this range. I hope that we can discover that there will be sufficient numbers of housing units here that are in the 30% range. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Gail. I have made notes of your comments. Although we're not able to go back and forth, I will bring up your questions at the end of the public comment period. Gregory?
Thank you, Vice Mayor Alvarez. I share Gail's concern, but I'm not sure you have much flexibility in this. Asking for you to help them get a loan, for a project they pretty much have control over. They decided it was going to be 30 to 60, they mean Chelsea, 30 to 60%. And I don't know whether or not you have any leeway in your process tonight to be able to say, well, we like this many units at 30 and this many at 40 and this many at 50. And, the kind of thing that would really give the community some sense of what really is going to happen. And I think, legitimately asks for something for what you're giving them. I would like to see a policy, Vice Mayor, that says in the future, when your staff is negotiating with these people, anyone who comes forth and wants this, and this isn't the first time it's happened, you get often requests to help somebody get a better loan. But you could ask something in return, and you could ask what I would like you to ask is specifics. Clearly, how many of these different levels of units are you going to get as a city for what you're giving? It's not enough for them to simply, get an approval from you and then go negotiate whatever they can with the insurance or with the agency that they're getting a loan from. You're a member of that agency. You should dictate what it is they can get. Otherwise, you're just, handing the keys to somebody who's going to come in and say, well, we couldn't do it for anything less than all 60. That's not good enough. That's not low income. In this county, that's $60,000. It may seem to some people like low income, but to me, a family of four making $60,000 is not homeless. They're not on the streets. They're not anywhere near either extremely low, very low. They're up in the moderates. And they need housing too, but let's not all fight about it. This project is supposed to be low. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Vice Mayor, there are no additional hands being raised via Zoom, and there were no pre-recorded public comments on this item.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to council. One of the questions posed is what are the 30 to 60 income brackets, as well as if there are any designated amount to each one of those brackets. Angela, I'm hoping you can help us answer that question.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor Alvarez. I'd be happy to answer that question. I'm happy to report that the project is actually 100% on, it's 100% affordable project. So there are no moderate income units, there are no market rate units. The project is 100% affordable. All 135 of the 136, there will be one unrestricted unit designated for the resident manager. So the unit mix of the project will consist of 84 two-bedroom units and 52 three-bedroom units in total. So within the affordability of the project, all of them will be at the no higher than the 60%. So I don't have the exact breakout of how many at 30, 40, 50, 60, and so forth, but all of the units will be restricted at affordable housing.
And this is Teresa Pekalski. I can actually chime in on the specifics if helpful. There will be 14 units at 30% AMIs, 14 units at 50% AMIs, and then 107 units at 60% AMIs. And again, all of those will be affordable at low and very low income with no market rate units.
For those that may not know, what is an AMI?
AMI stands for Area Median Income.
Thank you, Teresa, I'm sorry. Thank you both. Are there any additional questions or comments from my colleagues? Yes, Council Member Rogers.
I'm sorry, can you give me that breakdown again, the percentages?
Yes, of course. Excuse me, there will be 14 units at 30% AMI, and those are also split by bedrooms. If helpful, I can send the bedroom mix to Angela as well to circulate. 14 units at 50% area median income and 107 units at 60% area median income.
Councilmember, does that answer your question?
It does answer the question. And if I interpreted some of the comments correctly, it also goes into some of the comments that were made about the least amount of units being provided to the 30% and the 50%. So just wanted to point that out.
Very well. Any additional comments or questions? Seeing none, Madam Deputy Clerk, can we have Madam City Clerk, could we have a vote call on this item? Natalie, I see your hand raised again.
Actually, sorry, I do have a comment.
Please do. Oh, you just
sorry.
want to know. There you
For
go.
the sake of asking, is there any way to get the 30% and the 50% number of units raised, or is that something that, or is that?
This is Teresa again. Unfortunately, with the bonds and the tax credit program, we have to average out at a certain percentage. And once that amount is locked in, when we applied for tax credits back in September and were awarded in December, we are unable to change from that. McKellar, McGowan, and Chelsea do have another project that we're working on in the area and are looking at other sites. So that's definitely something that we can look at for future projects.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, Council Member McDonald.
So we've talked about area median income, and I think that that's a confusing concept. It has been for me. I've had to figure out how those calculation works when you say 30%, 50% and 60%, and somehow we just skipped right over the 40%. So I'm just wondering if you could give like a brief description of what that actually means for median income and how that works out for low income housing, because I think that that's maybe where we're getting some of the questions. And I know it was helpful for me to sit down and actually ask these questions ahead of time. So could you just give a brief kind of how that works?
Yes, thank you. I'd be happy to address your question. So I'd be happy to talk about the different income limits. So we have the 30% tier, 30% of area median income for our area. This is just as an example for a household of four. A household of four people, that would translate to $34,900. That's the ceiling income. So we have a 30% tier. This project also has 50% tier. So for 50%, with the same household size of four people, that maximum income would translate to $58,150. That would be the maximum. And then to the highest tier indicated at the 60% of area median income, again, that same household size would be $69,780. And those income limits and area median income for our area, they do come from HUD. So those are numbers that that we generate and make public on our website every year.
And I would also like to clarify that for the 50% area median income units, we actually are able to allow households that have lower incomes into those units. They just can't cap at 50%, which is usually why the higher amount of units are at 50 or 60% instead of the 30%. But some of that's a cap. We can go below if that makes sense. So we usually do fill more units with the 30% AMI than the 14 that we currently have.
That is very helpful. Thank you.
Do we have any additional questions? Seeing none, I believe Council Member Schroldham, this is your item.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I move a resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Rosa approving the issuance of revenue bonds in an aggregate amount not to exceed $40 million by the California Municipal Finance Authority for Aviera Apartments, a 136-unit multifamily affordable rental housing facility located at 1385 West College Avenue for the benefit of MM Aviara LP in accordance with section 147 subsection F of the Internal Revenue Code and the joint exercise of powers agreement related to said authority, and waive further reading of the text.
We have a motion and we have a second by Council Member Rogers. Deputy City Clerk, can you call the vote?
Thank you, Mayor. I will call the vote. Councilmember Schwedhelm.
Aye.
Councilmember Sawyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers.
Aye.
Councilmember McDonald.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Aye.
That motion passes with 5 ayes, with Mayor Rogers and Councilmember Fleming absent.
That was our only public hearing for the evening. We will go back to item 14.4. Madam City Manager.
Item 14.4 is a report, summary vacation of public service easement, Caritas Village. Our senior planner is going to present the report, and know how I am particular about names. I do not want to mess this up, so I'm going to allow her to pronunciate it for you.
You, Vice Mayor Alvarez. This is Kristen Tumians, a senior planner. And I'd like to present the proposed summary vacation of a public service easement for Caritas Village. Next slide, please. The applicant is seeking a summary vacation of a public service easement that has been partially abandoned and relocated. The easement was reserved for public utilities within a now vacated alley right-of-way. All public and private facilities that were located within the easement have been removed and have either been abandoned or relocated. And vacating the public service easement is necessary for the orderly development of the approved Caritas Village project. Next slide, please. This is where the project site is located. It's bound by the mall, the Highway 101, and residential housing units to the north, and encompasses a full city block. Next slide, please. And Caritas Village is an approved project that includes the redevelopment of that entire city block into a comprehensive family and homeless support services facility emergency shelter, which is currently under construction in a 126 unit affordable housing development. Next slide, please. On March 3rd, 2020, the City Council approved entitlements for the Caritas Village project. And on October 13, 2020, the City Council adopted the Downtown Station Area Specific Plan, which amended the general plan designation for the approved project site to core mixed use. Next slide, please. And here's the exhibit for the summary vacation. As you can see, it's a old alleyway that was vacated, and the utilities are meant to run through that alleyway within that easement. Although, as I stated earlier, all those, if there were any utilities in that easement, they have been abandoned or relocated. Next slide, please. And pursuant to California Streets and Highway Code, Section 8333C of the code, the city may summarily vacate public service easements if the easement has been superseded by relocation or determined to be accessed by the easement holder, and there are no other public facilities located within the easement. In the case of the subject public service easement, the easement has been superseded and any utilities within the easement have been relocated. Therefore, the public service easement meets each of these requirements and can be summarily vacated by the City Council. Next slide, please. And as far as CEQA, on March 3rd, 2020, when the City Council approved the entitlements for the Caritas Village project, the Council also adopted findings of fact and statement of overriding considerations for the project, which necessitates this summary vacation. And pursuant to state CEQA guidelines 15162, no additional environmental review is required as there have been no major revisions to the project. And there's no new information showing the project will result in new significant environmental effects or a substantial increase in the severity of the previously identified significant effects. And in general, summary vacations of public service easements are categorically exempt from CEQA pursuant to 15305, minor alterations in land use limitations. Next slide, please. And it is recommended by the Planning and Economic Development Department that Council by resolution approve a summary vacation of a 341 foot by 12 foot, which translates to approximately a 4,210 square foot public service easement that has been partially abandoned and relocated for the Caritas Village project, which is located on a downtown city block bordered by 7th Street to the north, A Street to the east, 6th Street to the south, and Morgan Street to the west. The next slide, please. This is my contact information for anyone in the general public that would like more information or they have subsequent questions about the vacation. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Council, are there any questions on item 14.4? Seeing shaking heads and no hands, let's go ahead and open up public comment. *9 if you are dialing in, raise your hand if you are on Zoom. Madam Deputy Clerk, do we have any of either?
We do, Vice Mayor. The first public comment will be from Gregory. Gregory, you are unmuted. Please go ahead with your comment.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just a quick comment. So you have two projects, this one, and the one we just heard about that you just approved. They're both about the same number of units, and you heard what the 30, 40, 50, 60 split was, mostly up in the 60. If you compare it with Caritas, which is about the same size, there's a heck of a lot more low income in Caritas than there is in this one. Now, that's partly a matter of where they're getting their money and what they want to serve. But my point is you have some control in this. And so long before it gets to you, you need to give your staff and you need to be able to think in the long term, what gets the best percentages of income housing in our city, and not let it simply be a matter of what they can get from their loan sources, or in this case, whether or not it goes to a low-income housing developer. Burbank has a few more tools in their toolkit to be able to make it so it's low income and homeless, but the project in front of you is a whole lot more friendly to people, a whole lot less income than the previous one. And that's not just an accident. It's by design, and you have a part in that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Gregory.
Vice Mayor, there are no additional hands being raised via Zoom, and we received no advanced public comment on this item.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to council. Councilman Sawyer, I believe this is your item, if you'd like to present it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move a resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Rosa approving summary vacation of one 341-foot by 12-foot public service easement located at 431, 437, 439, 465 A Street, and 506, 512, 516, 520, 600, 608, and 612 Morgan Street. Assessor's parcel number 010-041-001, 004-005, comma 008, 009, 010, 011, 013, 014, 015, 016, 017, 018, 019, 020 for the Caritas Village project, which is located on a downtown city block bordered by 7th Street, A Street, 6th Street, and Morgan Street. File number VAC 21-004 and waive further reading of the text.
That it?
I hear a second by Councilmember Schwalham. Is there any need for discussion on this item? If there is, please raise your hand. Seeing none, Madam City Clerk, can you call the vote?
Thank you. Councilmember Schwedhelm,
Aye.
Councilmember Sawyer,
Aye.
Councilmember Rogers,
Aye.
Councilmember McDonald,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Alvarez.
Aye.
That motion passes with 5 ayes, with Mayor Rogers and Councilmember Fleming absent.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We have taken care of everything before item number 16, written communications. Were there any comments or questions from my fellow colleagues on either one of these? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to item number 17, public comments on non-agenda items. This is your last opportunity to make a comment on matters concerning the city of Santa Rosa. You have 3 minutes. *9 if you call via phone. Please raise your hand if you are participating via Zoom. Madam Deputy Clerk, do we have either one of those tonight?
Vice Mayor, I'm seeing no hands being raised via Zoom, and we already listened to the pre-recorded public comment under item 13.
Good deal. We'll go ahead and close item number 17, public comments on non-agenda items, and that leaves us with, well, I guess we all know what that is, right? And before we do, I want to thank our Mayor, Chris Rogers, and his beautiful wife. I don't know the time in Scotland, but I imagine they're already married, so I'm going to say wife, for the opportunity to have been acting mayor for a week. It's been an honor. If it were up to me, I'd say stay another week, but the city of Santa Rosa needs you, so please hurry back. In closing, I'd like to dedicate this meeting to the newlyweds, Mr. and Mrs. Rogers, who reminded us that love trumps all. Thank you and good evening. This meeting is adjourned.